welcome everybody. So my name is Bohanna and I'm the moderator tonight of this evening. Tonight, while the evening lockdown is in place and we're stuck at home, DutchCulture and IQMF are organizing a talk about mobility. If this sounds ironic to you, we hear you. Also, we want to talk about the freedom to move beyond borders for artists exactly at a time like this. Because how fair is international artist mobility? What are the privileges of those who can travel, or maybe what are the benefits of staying home? We have asked 3 artists from tonight from the IQMF community, Tyna Adebowale, Astrid Ismaili, and Paula Chaves Bonilla, to reflect on what mobility means for them. I'll introduce the speakers to you in a minute, or I will actually ask them to introduce themselves. But let me first tell you a little bit more about the organizing parties of tonight if you're not familiar with them yet. So DutchCulture is the network and knowledge organization for international cultural cooperation. They support the Dutch cultural and creative sector, public authorities and diplomatic posts in the pursuit of their international ambition. Tonight, Laurens Meijer is joining us from DutchCulture. He is advisor at the Mobility Info Point and one of the coordinators of FAIR. For DutchCulture, this program is kicking off a 3-year thematic focus on fair international cultural collaboration. Every year, they will highlight one topic within the wide range of fair collaboration, and this is the first year of that edition, and it will be about mobility. Since 2019, DutchCulture is also connected with the International Queer and Migrant Festival in Amsterdam, accompanying the festival with panel conversation and international visitor programs. I will invite Chris Baloney now, Director of Art 1 and IQMF, to speak a few words to you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome at this artist talk tonight. My name is Chris Baloney, and I'm the director of the International Queer and Migrant Film Festival, Amsterdam. Unfortunately, we are not able to have our annual film festival this year in a physical form, but I'm very glad that we are able to co-host this talk along with our partner, DutchCulture, the Center for International Cultural Cooperation in the Netherlands. And we're also very excited to open the doors for you all and open the doors of our new cinema, Supernova Cinema. And maybe a few words about the festival itself. So we focus on queer and migrant and on the intersection of queer and migrant issues. We started as a film festival in 2015, and we slowly grew into a sort of multidisciplinary festival with film and theater and performances and podcasts. And we try to showcase queer film from all over the world, but we also try to be a platform for young filmmakers, storytellers, and podcast storytellers. So yeah, with this talk, we're super happy that we're having this talk tonight online, but we also aim to have our festival in spring 2022.
Looking very much forward to the spring, good weather, and also this festival. Sounds very great. We will go now to Laurens Meijer. He will give us a short presentation about how he helps international artists working in or with the Netherlands with questions of mobility, visa, and funding opportunities. So Laurens, take it away.
Thank you, Bo. So yeah, my name is Laurens and I work at DutchCulture's Mobility Info Point, and I was planning to tell you a bit about the work I do. I help artists and cultural organizations to work internationally and understand the rules that that are applied to them. For example, when a dance company has the idea to invite a group of Moroccan dancers to come to the Netherlands, I help them to prepare the visa applications and to file it. What I also do, I've started to do, is to give talks at art academies about life after the academy and what you can expect when you need to file for a residence permit as a self-employed artist, for example, but also if you're looking for funding and would like to use it to go abroad. I do this at DutchCulture because DutchCulture is connected to Dutch embassies abroad. We also work together with Dutch art funds like the Mondriaan Fund, but also Performing Arts Fund. and other European cultural institutions and funders. We also have Trans Artists. This is a residency database on our website, which lists an ever-growing amount of residencies in the world. So if you're interested in doing this and you would like to work somewhere for a while, I would suggest you look in the database or contact my colleagues about this. I'm also very much interested in researching the inequalities that come with working internationally. We understand that working with people and organizations can be different all over the world because there are differences in chances and opportunities people get. So what we do is research these and listen to people to understand what they experience. And it also helps us to know what kind of support or knowledge we can share to them to help them to take a step further. So we're very happy and privileged to meet all the speakers tonight. And we are ready to learn and hear more from your lived experience as queer migrants in Europe, in the Netherlands. So thank you, Tyna, Astrid, and Paula, for sharing your experience with us tonight.
Thank you, Laurens, for this presentation. I just wanted to ask you one thing. How can people reach you if they want to contact you?
Yeah, I will put my email address in the chat, but of course you can also find me on the website of DutchCulture. You can also call during the day, and then if you have a question you would like to discuss, I can answer them whenever you like.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laurens. I have 3 guests tonight that are going to share their experiences, and I'm not going to introduce them because I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So Tyna, Astrid, and Paula, in that order, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Adebowale. I go by the pronouns he, she, them. A visual artist that is based in Amsterdam. But also a little bit very restless because I like to find people who could relate with my story. Within my practice, I make paintings. I make a lot of drawings of people, mostly queer bodies. I make videos, and I'm very interested in social connections. So right now, within the Netherlands, I have, within the last 2 years, I have what is called the UNEME Mobile Library Project. This has helped me connect a lot of queer people around the Netherlands with a social connection and also to make work together. Building community also while doing all this. I'm also originally a Nigerian. I'm still very Nigerian, even if I've been in the Netherlands for 5 years. And in this sense, my work moved me around a lot. Right now, I'm talking from Dakar, because I like, of course, human stories and human connections that are not immediately around me. So I travel to find people.
Thanks, Tyna. Astrid, can you also introduce yourself?
So my name is Astrid Ismaili. I'm a performance artist. I'm operating mostly in the visual arts. My practice involves also other mediums like music composition, text, video, drawing, sound, and installation. And through my work, I propose bodies that consist both of imaginary and material realities, using different materials and working with alter egos, body extensions, wearable musical instruments to embody different possibilities of becoming. In my latest work and my latest research, I'm focusing on creativity when limited, which is not related to COVID, but right now we're dealing with a lot of limitation, and it's somehow also connected to my research. But basically, through this notion, I reference personal and historical figures from the past, or from history that use creativity in order to overcome a certain kind of like limitation, whether that is like physical limitation or environmental or geopolitical one. So this is kind of like what I'm busy with in the last few years.
Thanks, Astrid. We will elaborate a bit more on that later. But first, I'm going to ask Paula, can you also introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. It's nice to connect with people in the middle of this lockdown. Also nice to connect with you, Tyna, all the way from Dakar. My name is Paula Chaves. I am a Colombian artist based in the Netherlands since already 10 years. So a bit Dutch, but also very Colombian, as Tyna was also saying about Nigeria. My background is in circus, dance, and theater, and I work interdisciplinary among these disciplines, but also really combining it with my activism and experience with DIY grassroots movements, both in Colombia and also in the Netherlands since 10 years. So I'm also part of, I've like gone through different, like, let's say grassroots queer organizations, but right now I'm the co-founder of Papaya Queer, which is a collective for trans, queer, migrants, undocumented, and refugees in the Netherlands. So trying to, to bridge these connections between South and the Netherlands and my origins and here. Well, what my art, I would say, is also really marked by my upgrowing in Colombia. There is something in my bio that I said, like, I grew up in the narco-paramilitar time in Colombia. And what I mean with that is like, growing up in a moment of a lot of violence, of living in a context where there is a lot of censorship, a lot of like artists being also targeted as terrorists even, and a lot of people being also killed and or threatened or having to migrate because of because there is basically censorship, and the government also don't wanting to give a space for this story. So art for me is very connected about like giving a space for other narratives that are not in the mainstream, that are not present in the mainstream. For it's also about trying to create liberation within my body, but also within communities, within the audiences that I'm sharing the work with. I would keep it there and maybe say more things later.
Yeah, we will definitely have more time to go a bit deeper on that. But I first want to ask you all of you three a question, and that is, where are you currently, and would you want to be anywhere else, and where would that be, and why would you or maybe wouldn't you go there right now? So let's go in the same order as we started. So Tyna, you can start, and the rest can mute themselves.
I am currently zooming in from the city of Dakar in Senegal. I took a trip 1 month ago for an artist in residency project, trying so hard not to make work, but to indulge, engage, find people, and just enjoy myself. It's good weather, and this is like the first time almost 2 years of living in Europe. So it's very important for me touching my continent after many months. But in a way, I would say I enjoy where I am. I don't want to be anywhere else. Sorry about the Netherlands and its a really nice situation with the COVID. I think people have like forgot about COVID where I am, but we still have the measures of hand sanitizing and nose masks. But other than that, there is no like mental, psychologically, I wouldn't say torture, but it's a pity. But sometimes that's how I felt within the lockdown in Europe. So I am where I am right now, enjoying every moment. I'm meeting lots of people. It's a very warm space, beautiful weather, beautiful food, and inserting in the culture as well.
That sounds very great. I hope I could hop on a plane very soon towards you.
Yes, come.
Definitely. Astrid,
Yeah.
for you the same question. Where would you want to be and why? And would you hop on that plane or not?
Um, I'm in Amsterdam at the moment, and I'm actually fine with being here. I've been traveling a lot this summer for work. A lot of projects that got postponed last year, they happened this summer. So I had like a little tour around Europe, and now I'm back in Amsterdam, and I am working on the pre-production of new projects, and I'm also organizing myself because I'm going to move to a new place, a new house. So there's a lot of things I need to do at the moment. So yeah, I'm in Amsterdam, and in a utopian way, where would I want to be? I would just want to be in a reality in which we wouldn't have to deal with this confrontation, this limitation that we're dealing right now. It got longer than I thought it will get, and yeah, it's definitely affecting every process of life. So it's a really like a harsh confrontation to deal with.
Yeah. So let's all put that energy in the universe and hope they will all go away very soon. Paula, how about you?
So I am in my room in Amsterdam, where I spent most of the lockdown here. Today it was actually a nice moment because there was snow for the first time. And I was with my girlfriend who's from Colombia, and she's like one of the first times traveling to Europe. She's based in Colombia. And she was really happy to get to know the snow. So it was also a reminder of the cool things in the Netherlands. Sometimes I forget about it, and it was I remember also when I didn't know the snow. Yeah, and where I want, yeah, and where I am, I'm also busy a lot as fuck. So really, I'm blessed that I'm having a lot of things to do, but also kind of wondering where does the artist hustling stops, and wishing to have a bit more of rest. And where would I be? That's the, yeah. I would be in a place that is in between Colombia and the Netherlands. I would be in the social space of Colombia with the economical possibilities of the Netherlands, with the narco and paramilitary state over in Colombia, and with friends that I've met, amazing queer friends that had to migrate because of the war, that I've got to meet here, that I would have never got to meet them in Colombia, and also partying in the streets in a neighborhood in Bogota with a lot of the voguings in there, and drinking and being with people and playing and dancing. Yeah.
It sounds like a very good place. So when you found it, please text me. We're gonna go to some more questions in this panel, and I have a question. The first question is for all of you speakers, because when we talk about the obstacles artists face when crossing borders and working abroad, we always talk from our own perspective. Your personal experiences with the limitations of travel shape your opinion about mobility. Do you think that that the very different experiences of mobility for artists around the world can be understood, and can we overcome the assumptions that our own national framework brings forth, and will this make mobility for artists fairer?
I would say that the last few months, actually a few years of living in the Netherlands, mobility has been a bit easier for me, although I have never really had any crisis with wanting to cross any border the last years of my travel. And I've also just used the privilege of being based in Europe to also just access places freely. But I'm very focused on on the ground communities when I'm now able to travel. So the last 4 weeks in the car has been stressing myself to find people because mobility has to do with access, whether to stories, to people, to communities. So if I'm able to travel as a queer person seeking stories to Dakar, and then I'm here, I'm like, so where are the gay people? And I get reminded that, oh, this is Senegal, it's forbidden, it's hidden. Okay, then I got a lot of nice and very kind people who we knew before through the internet, and we had met in other at spaces say, don't rush it, just wait for it, it will come. So oftentimes, even if I could cross borders physically, how about being able to cross into people, making connections from that environment? Like, anyway, so I was able to still find people 2 weeks later, which was really good. But within my practice, even while wanting to make work from bodies, I like to create a social project that connects us. It's not about talking about work. And so the last 2 days, there have been a taxi driver strike. This means that people who cannot economically get cars cannot come to me, even if I can go to them. So I have mobility, but how about those who can come? So today I had to cancel the project because everywhere is locked down. The whole country is practically only for the privileged people that can move around. And I'm like, look, my queer friends, we are all broke. And if they can't come, then it's not going to happen. So there are levels of being able to access spaces, but we usually would have crises within sub-communities where we still will not be able to access the spaces, whether economically, and in this sense, actual mobility of having a taxi to take you around. And so this evening I had to cancel the project, and I got very, very disappointing reaction, but no, we won't have only privileged people move around because they can and then have the project. So oftentimes these are like the crisis. But in this case, it would be rescheduled, definitely. Yeah, like the work must go on even despite the challenges we face.
Yeah, and how do you think about that, Astrid?
Well, the question of mobility is actually, it goes beyond the restrictions during Corona in my personal experience. I was born in Kosovo. I grew up there, and Kosovo is one of the most isolated countries in Europe. It experienced everybody actually in Kosovo experiences a very harsh, unfair visa regime, and it's very difficult for people to travel in Europe and in most of the countries in the world. So, and especially for people who work within the arts, or athletes or models who have international careers, having a career in Kosovo, being based in Kosovo and having an international career, it's almost impossible. It's really, really difficult. This was like one of the first limitations that I was confronted when I realized that I want to be a performance artist and I want to travel with my work. I also realized very soon that the environment where I was brought up is not an ideal environment because of the political restrictions and the political situation. So I did not only care about my artistic practice, but I needed to find a way to find an environment in which I can be able to do the work I want to do and to be the person that I want to be. And therefore, like years later, After I moved to the Netherlands, before that I lived for 1 year in New York as well. But before that, after living in the after living in the Netherlands for 7 years, I came here to study. And then in the recent years, it became very clear that my practice developed towards this notion creativity when limited. And at first I was interested to find references in nature of, for example, in order to survive different kind of environmental limitations, one needs to be creative. And an example of that was actually the evolution of first plant into flowering plant. Because I don't know if you're aware, but plants did not have flowers for many, many years. And flowers became actually a reality after an evolution process, because plants had a really hard time to reproduce, and the harsh environmental conditions around them made them bloom into flowers. And what is today known as something very naive, like the flowers are, they're basically, this evolution had a huge impact in the entire ecosystem. And this somehow inspired me to continue find other references who relate to this kind of struggle and and how these struggles can actually push you to transform and to bloom and become something that did not exist before. So these fierce moments and these fierce events inspire me. And I think that people that are brought up in conditions which are not fair actually have to do double the work in order to be successful, or in order to become who they want to be. And I'm not saying that these conditions should stay because you're gonna become a great person afterwards. Absolutely not. But I'm just saying that these conditions put individuals in a drive so that they maybe need to open a path that did not exist before to overcome a certain limitation.
I think that's a very beautiful way to put it, with the flowers, and I also like that your outfit matches the story. Let's go to Paula. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I will pick up on the last thing that Astrid was saying, which is completely truth, because the COVID indeed was it's just highlighting a socio-political inequality that was already present. And in a there is a lot of, of course, like negative outcomes and restrictions that we are facing. But I would say that there is also a lot of positive outcomes, and it's the realizations that there is inequality. I felt like in my experience in the Netherlands is the first time in 10 years that I felt in the first time when COVID arrived that people was like, it was not Disneyland as I have experienced like Amsterdam through all these years, but there was this suddenly worry that it's dangerous and something is happening. And this is the space where I grew up in, actually in Colombia. And this, I know it's an evil laugh, but I was like, yeah, finally we get to like, there is some, like, I do feel that part of like becoming aware of others' realities is, it's starting to see the reality a bit more, which is terrible, man. We live in a world that is harsh, that is terrible, and what's happening in the COVID is just putting the shit out, like say it like that. And it has pushed us, and I like to think about our practices differently. So in my personal case, for example, like the queer collective that I was telling you that I'm part of, also kind of bloom in the middle of this moment, in a moment where a lot of us who don't have our families here felt a need to have a community and to be together, and that kind of happened during the lockdown. But but also I start feeling in the air, and also, yeah, being in a space where people is actually talking about solidarity economies. So then people, like the agenda and the capitalist agenda of me just being busy with my own production and then touring, and where does the next thing goes, and this kind of ladder that we keep on going up, and now that is very also dictated by the neoliberal progression system that we are in, suddenly got questioned. And then I feel people also being more busy with, okay, how do we redistribute resources? How do we create economies of solidarity? Like, hey, Astrid, how are you doing with your productions? Tina, how are you doing? Is there a way that we can, you know, like be a bit more informed with each other and create that spaces? So that's something that I feel it's really cool. Maybe a last thing that I would add here is that in my personal experience in the production that I have done this year, so throughout Corona, it also became really important to work with people from the South Glove. In a moment that there is a lot of inflation and there is a lot of scarcity, and artists really also living in places where there is no like social welfare support at all. So that has been, at least for me, something that I'm like, okay, like really redistribution. I'm now having the possibility to have a production in Europe. So how can I work with artists outside of Europe and redistribute that money, and also slow down the production, in the sense that I've been also faced with people in the institutions that tell me, hey, but why don't you work with a Dutch artist? Why do you have to ship in a person from this, you know, from Colombia or Mexico or Kenya? And then me insisting in like, yeah, I don't care if we slow down the process, but let's figure that out. And I feel there is a lot of learning to do in that sense. And yeah.
Yeah, and tonight we're also talking from a queer migrant perspective. What does this mean to you? When it comes to mobility as an artist. So, how would you say queerness is influencing your need or wish to travel? And do you feel like your identities as a queer and migrant intersect and influence your mobility? So, Tina, what do you have to say about that?
I think I like to travel as an artist, first of all, because I love to make work. I like to make art. I also, in that sense, like to pick other people's experience through other people's experience, which most times within the last almost 10 years has been stories about queer bodies. And so if it takes me to go to a village in Enugu in Nigeria, I would find a means to go. If it takes me to come to Senegal and travel through interiors to find people, I would, as much as possible, safely find stories, of course, through other people's help, which in this case, as the car, are not even queer people, it's an art space, who have been able to direct me to how to find these stories of queerness in a silent Senegal. What's your other questions again?
Do you feel like your queerness, being a migrant, influences your mobility as an artist?
If it addresses,
If it's influencing it?
that's why I started, but I position myself first and foremost as an artist, and then maybe other label will come in as queer artist, social researcher through art. Of course, all these would influence how I live, what I do, and how I meet other people, whether in my space or I go to them in that sense.
Yes, And Astrid, how do you feel like that plays a role?
As a performer, it's very important to travel because you do a research locally normally, and then your work, for me, it's very important to connect with as many people as possible, and that my work reaches out to people who maybe really need to see it. And an example of that is this summer, actually, I had the honor to open the Athens Biennale, and they invited me to do a fragment from a performance I did, which is called Miss. And one of the figures in the references in this project is my alter ego, Miss Kosovo. And I did a fragment from Miss Kosovo, and I was super excited because Greece doesn't recognize Kosovo as a state. And on the other hand, Miss Kosovo is a queer figure as well. So it stands for Kosovo as an independent state, but it's also another part of identity, the queer identity, which is not recognized globally. And it's like a movement which is in a global scale. And for me, it was very important to bring these discussions in a context in which normally maybe there's not so much discussion about identities that are not recognized, or maybe there is discussion but there is no platform. So for me, it was like I felt a sense of responsibility to bring this discussion. And then after the performance happened, it was crazy because it was even broadcasted on the national television as during the news program. And for me, this was such a big, it was a significant moment, not because I was on TV, but because these discussions somehow reached the mainstream public. And I think that this is also the reason why I see art as a platform in which you can really bring and propose ideas and political viewpoints, because in most of the professions in the world, you don't have the privilege to have a platform where people can really listen and engage in a different ways with each other, bodies and spaces. And therefore, traveling and being an artist go hand in hand, whether I'm queer or not. I mean, that's my identity, but my work is it goes beyond my identity, I hope.
I think you understood the question very well. Thanks for that. Paula, could you also try to answer my question?
I actually just did a work in which I start kind of digging about the reasons why I left Colombia, and understanding why me being here is also partly not just migration, but also being politically exiled. And that is connected with actually living through violent situations in Colombia, where I didn't feel that being a lesbian or being non-binary was something that was welcome, was embraced, was accepted. So definitely that's something that did push me to go far away. I do like traveling as an artist, of course, and there is a lot of, I don't know, like learnings or that you get perspective when you also meet another culture. At the same time, I have a lot of, I'm asking right now myself, asking and also, how do you say that? Yearning, for more local connection, in the sense that I feel, right now, I don't know, like, so traveling became very hip, and queerness is also now becoming a very hip topic. So we are going also to the, like from, yes, we do travel, but we go, I wonder how much really diverse our audiences are. This is basically what I want to say, in the sense that we go like, I like the theater and I like art space, and at the same time I feel that often it's also really for a niche of people, and it's really bourgeois people, and it's people that is already maybe thinking in a similar way, so progressive, so kind of preaching to the same church. So also and also globalization, in the sense that, yeah, that you really don't get to make connections with communities. So I'm also in a moment that maybe I'm also yearning to be in places a bit longer than just the moment that I'm just like chipping in my work and then flying to another place. There was actually a nice moment in the summer. I was presenting a work in a festival in Zurich in Switzerland, and after we performed, there was like a framework that the festival organized in which we were sharing practices with other artists and exchanging about our experiences, and that felt like, yeah, this is something that I wanna keep on doing. Like, it's not just also about me like traveling around the world and touring, and that's also, of course, sounds very sexy, but I also wonder how much this is really transforming the world, and yeah, bringing a killjoy question a bit also on the board of yeah. So I don't see also, even like with Corona and COVID, like sure, like it's shitty that maybe we cannot travel a lot, but it's also like asking us to maybe like engage more locally, and also for festivals to put a bit more attention to local artists and stop just focusing on like sexy international artists that go all over the world.
And now I had some questions that were for all of you three, but now I'm going to have also some questions specifically made per person. And my first question is for Astrid. You are experienced in the different artistic fields, from visual arts to performance body work, and even as a child pop star. Do you feel like there's a difference in how much chances you have for traveling with your work between these different disciplines? And where do you think this comes from?
Well, working in different disciplines, actually, it's not a strategic choice at all. It's a very organic process. And I guess what makes it more simple, and I've decided actually because of the market is all about branding, and if you do anything that is unexpected out of branding, out of that branding of what you represent, then it's going to be really, really hard because for the market, because the market is always wants you to be categorized. And this is also something which disturbs me in a deep level, because this is also when the queerness comes about, and not per se in relation to identity, but also in relation to how things are categorized and simplified. And as a person living in this reality, I am a witness that reality is a very complex phenomena. Therefore, trying to be one thing or trying to be defined or do just one thing, it's actually the most unnatural thing that you can do. So, but working with these limitations, you again have to be very creative. So in one hand, I say I'm a performance artist, but then if you give me the space, I'm going to do all these other things. And I think performance is a space in which it allows for a lot of things to happen, and it somehow marries all the other interests.
Yeah.
And in relation to traveling, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I think, yeah, I have to agree with Paula that since COVID happened, actually, I was just wondering, as a person based in Amsterdam, that there's definitely like a need for more kind of like a local engagement and a community, because sometimes I feel quite alone in what I'm doing, and I miss this sense of a community and these spaces of sharing and exchange with other local artists, which I think is very important, not only for our works, but for us as a community.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, I have to agree with Paula that yeah, it's nice to travel, to have the chance to use different platforms, but it's also very nice to create like a base and a community in which you really know the needs and the desires of a group and work towards it together.
Yeah, because speaking about communities, do you feel like you work mostly with communities from Kosovo, or is it mostly like focused on the local community in Amsterdam? And if you work from communities from abroad, how do you keep in touch with them?
I work a very in collaboration because I work also as a performer myself, but I also work with other people who perform in my projects. Sometimes I work in other people's projects. I work with all kinds of disciplines to make my wearable musical instruments. I work with sound engineers, I work with light designer, I work with costume designers, and I work with people from different fields. And sometimes you cannot find a person in your circle, so in your local circle, and then sometimes you need to work internationally as well. And I think this is a very positive thing, I think, to work in a much more diverse mode and like bring different kind of people in your process and use this platform to really kind of like bridge with different scenes as well and different yeah, this thing was mentioned about like queerness and queer becoming like a trend, which I think is a very negative thing that we have to be cautious about, because trends in art come and go, but the queer struggle is real. And when it comes to like art and how queerness is used in art practice, this is also a very sensitive topic. And I don't know what I'm saying, because now in this short time frame, but it really scares me, you know, that some real life struggles become trend, and then some people take advantage of it, but you know that will only harm the community. So yeah, it's a tricky.
Yeah, we have to be cautious about that. But I think that somebody that also knows a lot about the harshness of the reality is Paula, because Paula, with Papaya Queer, the organization that you work for, you support queer migrant women and trans women that often face many obstacles traveling for safer spaces. And from this experience, do you think that queer migrant artists have less access to international mobility? And what do people need to know about that, and what needs to change?
Yes, I actually would think like that, like just to radicalize a bit more even the migrant position, that there is people that don't even have the category of migrants. They have the category of like refugees, which is less. And then even if you go further, there is the category of undocumented people. So it's people that, yeah, that they don't even have papers to work in the place that they are in. So of course they're not able to move. And a lot of these situations is linked to the war that is happening in a lot of places in the South. Sponsored also by first world countries like the Netherlands, and yeah, and having to get to literally run away from their countries to look for refuge. Yeah, so I guess what I'm also saying is like, yeah, like one of the things like maybe becoming like raising awareness of the world that we are in, raising socio-political awareness of the situation, and indeed also what like stressing, going further into what Astrid was saying, is like yeah, becoming suspicious also about how the market, you know, and the market is very smart. So it's also, we also like, it's again like just to quote like metaphor that the Zapatistas use for capitalism, and when they say the hydra is really like a matrix, and a hydra that keeps on mutating and is very smart in how it's co-opting radicalized movements. So becoming suspicious about that, and also becoming creative in how we can keep on creating and recreating politics of solidarity, economies of solidarity, decentralized autonomous spaces. And maybe just to add also to that, you know, like also going out of this narrative, I think also in kind of identity politics and BIPOC spaces, in queer spaces, that it has become also very trendy to kind of have this, no? Maybe some of you know about this term of the Olimpiadas de Opresión, so the Olympics of oppression, and like, then it really becomes about me having a whole rant about how I am more oppressed than the others, and maybe inviting us to then how actually what are the spaces and privileges or access that I have, and how I can resource or share that with people around myself, and maybe switching that paradigm would be a really cool place to start. And
yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's a very important discussion that we need to have within our own communities in a safe way. I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask a question, and if the audience is more into listening than asking questions, then maybe you guys, or you have something to add, or maybe there's something that you want to elaborate on that the other person said, or maybe you have a question for each other. Astrid, I think you always have something to say, so maybe we can start with you. No?
I mean, I'm just very happy to share this space with everyone, and I don't know. I think we went through, things more or less.
I think actually there is a question from Chris Baloney.
Thanks, Bo. Yeah, I have a question about funding opportunities and about the access to information, actually. So all of the guests are actually living in the Netherlands for quite a few years. But my question is, are mobility programs, such as also facilitated by DutchCulture, for instance, are they known among you? Do you know how to get your information? And also as a film festival, we also struggle sometimes to, I mean, we try to inform filmmakers on how to find funding to get to our festival, for instance, and we really try to help them. But my question is information accessible, and how do you find it?
To be honest, for mobility, I have never applied for any grant, because most of the time, when I'm invited to do something somewhere, then the inviting party covers the transportation and accommodation, so I didn't have to do it. But for other funds, it's somehow, if you study here, then there's kind of like a I don't know, like a gradual process of how you get into the funding system, and it first gets introduced through the education system, and then through other peers who are getting funds, and then through the websites.
Yeah, I think with a lot of things considering funding, that it stays within certain groups, right? Sometimes, and that certain people from different groups cannot reach the fundings or the funds just because they don't know. So I think it's also something that people need to tell each other. Yeah, do you agree with that, Tyna or Paula, as an artist living in Amsterdam or somebody from the community?
Yeah, I think it's a question of access. But I've been, I struggled a bit for the first few years. Then I started asking the right people the proper questions. So in a few months, I was able to get like Mondrian Fund, the AFK, and then the CBK was able to fund my mobile library project for 1 year. But this was also because I started asking the right people the right questions. So it's about access. Who are you talking to, and who is responding back to you to help you get this information.
Yeah, but it starts with doing your own research and asking around, basically.
Yes.
Can I have one follow-up question on this, Mo?
Yes.
Maybe you, Paula, because also funders often want to, if you file an application for a project, for instance, they also want you to write it in a certain form or use certain terminology. Do you think that that kind of information on how to apply and how to use or how to mold your project proposal into a form that is needed or required by a fund? Do you think that funders in the Netherlands do provide the right information to you as an artist in order to apply for funding?
I think you have to, I think like the information is there, but maybe in how it's shared, sometimes it's not very, I don't know, out there or accessible. So it's like you have to go through a lot of, I don't know, papers or websites to get to know that, or indeed what Tyna was saying, then really ask a lot around. I actually now also here in Lawrence, I'm like still very ignorant. I mean, 10 years is a lot. And I was also kind of linked to Dutch institutions, and I still have to know, like get to know a lot. So that also speaks about that maybe it's not that accessible, or there is a rupture. So yeah, really relevant question. And also even again within the Netherlands, like I know things about Amsterdam, but for example, some of the things that I've been like stressing out. So I'm like a house artist right now at a theater that's called Fame House for Performance here, which means that they are also producing my work. So I, at this moment, don't have to apply directly to the fund, but through them. But kind of stressing with them because it has been super hard to get gigs outside of Amsterdam, and still I don't know how to get around. So that's also something that I'm like, how the hell, like, is it really that? I mean, actually, the Netherlands is quite huge, and there is a lot of cool venues in different, like Rotterdam, Arnhem, Den Haag, Den Bosch. I have not Utrecht, like Rotterdam, I had one gig there and like a co-production once, you know, out of like, I'm talking about a lot of years. So that's still a question of like, is there not audience there? Like, do they just like Dutch comedy or like what? Yeah. How do we get to these Dutch audiences?
Yeah. Well, I hope they are all gonna listen or watch this event that we have. Get to know how amazing you guys are. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, IQMF, DutchCulture. Thank you, Renske, Laurens, Chris, Rick, everybody that was involved. Yeah, I hope that we will have a panel discussion very soon in these kind of times. It's very nice to you know, meet people and still have the discussion going on. And of course, thank you to my guests of tonight. And I wish to see you all very soon.
Thank you. Thank you. It's gonna time at last. Thank you so much, speakers. That was a beautiful conversation.